Good evening. Thanks for joining us on India Business Hour. I'm Shireen Bhan. The top stories that we're tracking for you this evening. Rare earth relief as India and China reset their relationship. Bajaj Auto resumes Chetak deliveries as rare earth magnet shipments arrive from China. China's ambassador to India says silence emboldens the bully, adds that China stands firmly with India in opposing the US tariffs. With 5 days to go for the 50% US tariffs to kick in, Trump's trade advisor Navarro attacks India once again, calls New Delhi a laundromat for the Kremlin. Consumption stocks are back in vogue. Potential GST rate cut, strong monsoon and front-loading of rate cut by the IRDAI lifts sentiment. Bernstein anticipates a great switch from Capex to consumption. L&T continues to get good order flow, says Chairman Larsen Toubro. Bets big on the real estate business and even could consider a listing in a year or two, says work is in progress to improve the return on equity to 18%. That's an exclusive. Gaming companies reach out to the government as the new law banning pay-to-win games gets the president's assent. Companies seek more time to refund users and plead against immediate ban on financial transactions, also seek clarity on existing games and providing subscription services. The insurance regulator considers capping annual health insurance premiums, plans to link it to medical inflation. A consultation paper is expected soon. That's an exclusive. Walmart reports a 10% rise in international sales led by China, Mexico and India, says Flipkart and Myntra are key to its quick commerce growth strategy and the company is well positioned to take advantage. Supreme Court allows those excluded from the Bihar voter list to file an application using Aadhaar as a proof of identity, directs political parties to assist in filing application. This after the Election Commission admits that 65 lakh people have been removed from the voter roll with elections scheduled in November, a boost to the petitioners. The Supreme Court stays its order on relocating stray dogs in Delhi NCR, directs civic authorities to release the dogs in the same area, but after sterilization and vaccination, prohibits dog feeding in public areas, calls for creating designated spaces. FBI raids the residence of President Trump's former national security advisor turned vocal critic John Bolton. Alleges mishandling of classified documents. FBI Director Kash Patel posts a cryptic message saying no one is above the law. An organization backed by the United Nations declares a famine in Gaza for the first time, warns death could increase exponentially. Israel continues to attack Gaza, killing 30 people in overnight raids. Facebook's parent Meta agrees to spend more than $10 billion for Google's cloud services. This is a big contract for Google as it chases larger rivals Amazon and Microsoft in the cloud business. Let's start with the market action. The Sensex and the Nifty snapping a 6-day winning streak. The Sensex lost nearly 700 points today and the Nifty was below the 25,000 mark. That's the story for today, down about 1% each. The Nifty Bank also lost about 1% today. But if you talk about the picture for the week, the Nifty is actually up this week by about 1%, as is the Sensex. The mid-cap index, in fact, outperforming, up almost 2%. But the top story this evening, New Delhi and Beijing have pressed the reset button on their diplomatic and economic engagement, this after a 5-year freeze. Shipments of rare earth magnets from China have resumed. Here's evidence. Bajaj Auto says it's restarted deliveries of its e-scooter Chetak. The Chinese Foreign Minister Wang Yi in India earlier this week. He met Prime Minister Modi, External Affairs Minister Jai Shankar and NSA Ajit Doval. Now, Prime Minister Modi will visit China later this month for the SCO summit. All of this also comes amidst Trump escalating the tariff offensive against India. China, meanwhile, has a reprieve because there continues to be a pause on additional tariffs. China's ambassador to India attacking the US, saying silence and compromise only embolden the bully. He went on to say that China will firmly stand with India and uphold the multilateral trading system with the World Trade Organization.
The United States has imposed tariffs of up to 50% on India and is even threatened for more. China firmly opposes it. In the face of such acts, silence or compromise only emboldens the bully. China will firmly stand with India to uphold the multilateral trading system with the World Trade Organization at its core.
As far as LRE is concerned, we started receiving clearance for our shipments from approximately 3 weeks ago. It didn't coincide with any visits from India to China or the recent visit from China to India. It's not an automatic outcome of that. This had started before. But what we are seeing now with respect to LRE or light rare earth is that the slow process of movement is accelerating.
Well, evidence there of the economic re-engagement between India and China as the rare earth supply disruption starts to ease and supply starts coming to India. Now, India is staring at a 50% tariff on exports to the US in the next 5 days. President Trump has threatened to double the current 25% tariff, citing India's oil purchase from Russia. But the US is not acting against China, which is the largest buyer of Russian oil. President Trump's top trade advisor, Peter Navarro, launching a fresh attack on India. Navarro said India does not need Russian oil and it is profiteering from the trade. He also accused India of being, and I quote, a laundromat for the Kremlin. Navarro has long been a critic of India's trade policies and even termed New Delhi the Maharaja of tariffs. Here's Navarro.
Prior to the invasion of Ukraine in February 2022, India bought virtually no Russian oil. I mean, it was like 1% of their needs. So the argument somehow now, as the percentage has gone up to like 30 and 35%, that somehow they need Russian oil to cool their homes or cook or drive their cars is nonsense.
Well, that's Peter Navarro, and the U.S. State Department has responded to CNN News 18's query on the call between President Trump and Prime Minister Modi. In June, it said, and I quote, "We do not comment on private diplomatic conversations." The Trump administration has also refused to issue any readout of that call. However, the U.S. reiterating its claim that the U.S. brokered the ceasefire reached between India and Pakistan post-Operation Sindoor. Remember, President Trump on multiple occasions has claimed that he convinced India and Pakistan to agree to a ceasefire. But Prime Minister Modi in Parliament on the 29th of July said that no leader from any country had asked India to stop Operation Sindoor.
दुनिया के किसी भी नेता ने भारत के ऑपरेशन रोकने के लिए नहीं कहा.
A quick check of some of the other headlines tonight. Wipro will acquire Harman's digital transformation solutions business from Samsung for $375 million. Brokerages have given a mixed picture on the deal. Nomura believes the deal will strengthen Wipro's existing offerings. Morgan Stanley says the acquisition can be dilutive to the company's margins. Apollo Hospitals promoter and managing director Sunita Reddy has sold 1.25% stake in the healthcare company for nearly 1,400 crore rupees. The move is aimed at cutting down the pledged holdings of the promoters. IRDAI may soon put a cap on health insurance premiums. Sources say the regulator is considering linking premiums to medical inflation and could soon release a consultation paper on the same. Yes Bank's shareholders have approved Prashant Kumar's extension as managing director and CEO till April 2026. This is his second extension. Kumar took charge in March of 2020 following the RBI-led revival of Yes Bank. The big story tonight. Consumption stocks are back in vogue on the Lal Street. Potential GST rate cuts, a strong monsoon and the front-loading of interest rate cuts by the RBI have lifted sentiment. Bernstein anticipates a great switch from Capex to consumption. Nimesh is standing by with the details. Nimesh, this switch in fact started right from the budget.
Oh, absolutely, Shirin. So the last 4 years is all about Capex, but now it looks like there's going to be a big comeback for the consumption as a theme. So that's the big question which has been talked in the market as well. Is it a time for a big reset from Capex to consumption? First, look at the Capex basket. In the last 4 years, they've relatively outperformed, largely on the back of the government push. So if you look at the Capex basket, everything in that basket has actually done very well. It'll come up on the screen. The capital good index, the infra index, the industrial index, all are up between 25 to 35%. This is a 4-year return CAGR for the Capex basket. Compared to that, the consumption basket has relatively underperformed. Within that, the auto index is up 24%, but the rest, like the consumer durables, FMCG, as well as oil and gas, are up between 12 to 15%. So relatively underperforming the Capex basket. Now, what are the triggers for the consumption to do well from here on? The first trigger came in the budget itself when the government shifted the focus to consumption from Capex by cutting the interest, by cutting the income tax. So that was the first big trigger. Then followed by front-loading of rate cuts by the RBI. The monsoon has been so good so far and has been progressing well. And last but not the least, the GST rationalization now looks like a reality. So these are the few triggers. And that's the reason why Bernstein has put out a note this week. And they're anticipating a great switch from Capex to consumption. In fact, in that basket, they've actually done a mild overweight on staples, and they continue to be overweight on durables as well. This is a big upgrade they've done very recently. However, within the consumption basket, they are very bullish and overweight on QSR, retail, and autos. These are the three segments where they believe money could be made, and they're actually underweight or equal weight on utilities and underweight on industrial. So again, as Bernstein put out, there is a great shift expected. A switch expected from Capex to consumption, and looks like, given all the triggers, consumption can really do well from here on.
Nimesh, many thanks for joining us. And that is the theme, the Capex to consumption switch. And of course, all eyes now on the GST Council's meeting for the GST rate cut that has been proposed by the government. Bajaj Auto's managing director has in fact welcomed the proposal to cut GST to 18%, even as he predicts a near-term slowdown in sales as people might delay buying vehicles. But he believes that is going to be a small adjustment for a long-term gain. Let's take a look.
That, you are not doing them a favor by bringing in 18% in place of 28%. It is still high compared to, let's say, a median of 12% by as much as 50%. It's very welcome. It's fabulous. It's fantastic. It will be great. But it is still on the higher side. 100%, there will be a slowdown, but that needs to be qualified by the time period. For example, the slowdown which has already started, and let's say, for example, arbitrarily that the new policy comes into effect from 1st October. Definitely industry will see a slowdown between now and end of September.
Well, that's Bajaj Auto on the proposed GST rate cut. From one newsmaker to another, L&T continues to get good order flow, says Chairman and MD S.N. Subramanian. He's also betting big on the company's real estate business, and a potential listing could happen in a year or two. Speaking exclusively to Lata, the L&T chief said that work is in progress to improve the return on equity to 18%.
Today, the backlog of orders to be executed is more than 6,25,30,000 odd crores, which means from an EPC point of view, we are more than 2.5 years of work as we look forward. And these are fairly fast-track orders in the sense many of them have to be done in 2.5 years, 3 years. So as an organization today, we seem to be on a firm footing. We have 5 orders from NTPC for boiler and turbine. We have 8 orders for boiler and turbine from Adani Group. And in a short while, we expect some more orders. Any rationalization being attempted will be helpful. I'm extremely happy that the government is thinking about it. And if they do this rationalization, it's another positive step towards, in my view, ease of doing business. When we talk at the management level, our executive committee level, at the board level, we focus on return on equity. We have from 12% we have pushed it to 17. I'm reasonably confident there was an internal target of getting to 18. We will do that.
Well, that's L&T there on its order book. President Murmu has given her assent to the bill that bans online money games. This comes a day after the bill was passed by Parliament. Gaming companies have reached out to the government on complying with the new bill. We learned from sources that companies have pleaded against an immediate ban on transactions and have sought more time to be able to refund users. Ashmit joins us now with details. Ashmit, gaming companies knocking on the government's doors. What exactly are they asking for?
Well, it took less than 48 hours for the Parliament to pass the Promotion and Regulation of Online Gaming Bills 2025. And with that, we are also given to understand that the presidential assent has been received. But nonetheless, there are still operational implementation issues that are now being raised by the industry, who's in fact reaching out to the government for seeking more clarity. A number of issues being highlighted. For one, One of the issues that is being raised by industry bodies as well as by various companies is that if there is an immediate ban that is effective as far as financial transactions are concerned, not only will it bar users from putting in and depositing fresh money on the platforms, it will also bar the very same companies from refunding this money back to the users. So how to go about it? Is there a staggered timeline required? That's one of the issues being raised. The other is with respect to a subscription model. The question being asked is that if there are non-money games being provided as a service, can these companies go ahead and charge a subscription fee? Is that something that is permissible under this legislation? The second key question being asked. Third, as far as the current crop of games are concerned, which are real money games, another question being raised, being posed before the government is, if these games are divorced from the money aspect, where there is no money coming in or money going out, can these games survive by themselves? Are they legally permissible? That's another key question being raised. And finally, another question being raised is that a number of online social gaming websites allow for in-app purchases. Purchases that you make on the basis of transactions within the applications for the game. There is no betting or wagering involved, but there is a financial transaction. Is that something that is permissible under this new framework that has been proposed by the centre? All of these questions being raised, operational clarity being sought from the centre by the gaming companies.
Ashwat, many thanks for joining us. Meanwhile, a PIL has been filed at the Supreme Court opposing the government's rules on blending ethanol with petrol. The plea calls for directions to the government to ensure mandatory labelling of blended petrol and also calls for ensuring that ethanol-free petrol. The petition also seeks a study on the impact of blended fuel on vehicle performance and mileage. The court is yet to decide on admitting the petition. Remember, there has been a fair degree of outrage over the past several weeks on ethanol blended fuel impacting mileage and performance of vehicles, and now a plea being moved in the Supreme Court. ChatGPT maker OpenAI is setting up shop in India. The AI company will open its first office in New Delhi later this year. India's ChatGPT's second largest user base after the US. The corporate office is aimed at working more closely with the Indian government and, of course, developers and other stakeholders under the India AI mission. OpenAI says it's already registered a local entity and has started hiring local talent as well. Retail giant Walmart reporting a 10% rise in international sales led by China, Mexico and India. Walmart says Flipkart and Myntra are key to its quick commerce growth strategy and the company is well positioned to take advantage. Shilpa joins us now with the details. Shilpa, take us through Walmart's commentary on India as well as its own Indian entities.
Well, you're right. Walmart has beaten revenue estimates in the second quarter of FY26. It clocked a revenue of $177 billion, which was ahead of the forecast of about $174.5 billion. Now, the company has raised its full-year net sales growth guidance as well to as much as about 4.75 compared to the earlier range of up to about 4%. Now, e-commerce sales were also up about 25% globally. And this, like I was telling you, gave the company the guidance to raise the confidence to raise its guidance as well. But what really stood out this time in the earnings is the company's commentary on its quick commerce bet in India. Now, Walmart said that international sales jumped 10.5% led by Flipkart, along with Walmex and China as well. Now, this as India is right at the heart of Walmart's aggressive quick commerce push. Now, this has even showed up in the company's financials with the international gross profit margins coming under pressure this time on the back of its QCom investments in the country. Now, Walmart says that customers are preferring faster deliveries and the company's positioning itself to capture this growth efficiently. Now, it said during its earnings call that Flipkart now operates 300 fulfillment centers, which is enabling deliveries under 15 minutes, while Myntra has built about 60 micro-fulfillment centers that can serve fashion shoppers under 30 minutes. Now, the focus, Walmart said in its earnings call, is on placing third-party inventory closer to consumers to improve the speed and efficiency. And, the recent fund infusion into Flipkart's marketplace arm further underscores this bet. Flipkart Internet actually raised over 7,800 crore rupees from its Singapore-based parent across 4 rounds in about a year, which included about 2,225 crores in May earlier this year, about 3,250 crores in April this year, and 2 more fund infusions last year. So clearly, Walmart is betting big on India, both as a growth engine for its international business, but also, more importantly, as a test bed for its quick commerce ambitions. Back to you.
Shilpa, many thanks. The Supreme Court modifies its own order on relocating stray dogs in Delhi NCR. That and more when we return. Catch all of CNBC TV 18's news and updates on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, X and Geo Hotstar. A check off the global headlines. FBI agents raided the home of former U.S. National Security Advisor John Bolton. This is part of an investigation into mishandling classified documentations. FBI Director Kash Patel posted a cryptic message on social media saying no one is above the law. Now, the move comes just after President Trump attacked Bolton, who has turned into a vocal critic, for opposing Trump's meeting with Russian President Putin in Alaska to end the Ukraine war. Just last month, in an exclusive interview with CNBC TV 18, Bolton had said that Trump was trying to extricate himself out of the Russia-Ukraine conflict.
What Trump is really trying to do is find a way to extricate himself from the Ukraine-Russia war. He did the right thing by authorizing the deployment of Patriot missile air defense systems, which will begin fairly shortly. But he's made no longer-term commitment to supplying Ukraine with military assistance. I think what Trump sees on this is that his effort at diplomacy has failed, and he'd like to extricate himself from the Ukraine war.
Well, John Bolton, the former national security advisor, being raided in the U.S. An organization backed by the UN has declared a famine in Gaza for the first time without a warning that deaths could increase exponentially. Meanwhile, Israel continues to attack Gaza, killing 30 people in overnight raids. Most of those killed were sheltering in schools and tents. Ambulances are struggling to reach the wounded, and aid seekers continue to come under fire. More than 2,000 people seeking food assistance have been killed since the month of May. Back home, the Supreme Court has stayed its own order asking stray dogs to be relocated in the Delhi NCR. Ashmit is back now with us. Ashmit, relief coming in there for animal rights activists who had moved the Supreme Court, asking the Supreme Court to modify the previous order. Explain to us what happens now.
Well, Supreme Court coming to the aid of stray dogs in Delhi NCR. Importantly, bear in mind that just a few days back, the Supreme Court had passed sweeping directions for rounding up of all stray dogs and relocating them to designated centers. The fact that there are no animal centers is something that was flagged by the petitioners, and it is based on that the Apex Court in today's interim order has clarified that while the municipal authorities can pick up these dogs, can sterilize and immunize them, there is no case to be made for relocating them. They have to be released back at the same location. So a big relief coming in as far as stray dogs is concerned. But having said that, there are other key takeaways as well. What about feeding of stray dogs? On that, the Apex Court has clarified that there will be designated spots identified by the municipal authorities in every municipal ward, and that is the only area where street dogs can be fed. Feeding of stray dogs on the streets is barred, and any person doing so is liable to face action. And that brings us to the third and perhaps the most important takeaway from today's court proceedings. The Supreme Court clarifying as a part of this order that going forward, it is not happy with keeping this a Delhi-specific issue. It wants this to be a pan-India issue. So to that end, a notice being issued to all the states, to all the union territories, being asked to respond to the Apex Court on this very issue of management of the stray dog population.
Ashmit, many thanks. From Chhattisgarh to Odisha to Bihar to West Bengal, East India is pushing to become the country's next growth engine. At the CII India Summit in Mumbai, state officials and industry captains showcased the region's potential to become a powerful growth engine. Madiha has more.
East Indian states are pushing for a larger role in shaping India's GDP. Representatives of 4 states, Odisha, Bihar, Chhattisgarh and West Bengal, came together in Mumbai, the commercial capital of India, for the CII East India Summit 2025. Their pitch: invite Indian companies to set up factories and tap the real potential of their region. The summit that had states and industry leaders under one roof aimed to project East India as the next engine of India's economic growth. The numbers are promising: growth rate above the national average, exports worth over $14 billion, FDI inflows crossing $5 billion, and more than 14,600 startups creating nearly 1.5 lakh jobs.
First and foremost, it is a region blessed with natural resources. It is also a region which has a lot of human capital, and more importantly, cost-effective and skilled labor. It is a power surplus region. It is a region with huge access to the coastlines.
Odisha is seeking investments in key sectors from tourism and agri-food processing to steel and energy, aiming to present itself as a diversified growth hub.
There was a time when earlier proposals put up to the government used to take 90 days to be cleared. Now it has come down to 19 days. We have one of the longest coastline we can have many Goas. Tourism potential can be developed. When I talk about agri-tourism, we are talking about taking people to the villages, making them live in the villages, eat organic. We will give you airports too. But first, your intent should be there to come there. Otherwise, who is going to be using those airstrips?
Bihar has set itself an ambitious target, becoming a $1 trillion economy by 2047. The state wants to move beyond the perception of being just a labor provider and wants to focus instead on manufacturing. State officials say creation of jobs in the state will help reduce the large-scale migration of its people in search of jobs. Bihar is pitching for opportunities in food processing, textiles, leather, IT and tourism sectors.
People often ask, why Bihar? But today I want to ask a better question. Why not Bihar? This is a land with abundant water, cost-effective manpower, vast consumer market, 30% of India's population living in the east. Yet the region contributes just 16.5% of the GDP. This imbalance needs to change.
West Bengal too is pushing aggressively, aiming for a $400 billion economy by 2030.
Gems and jewelry is one of the most important sectors. If you go throughout the country, you see all the artisans of gems and jewelry comes from Bengal. So we are more interested that people should go there and invest there and make the industry there itself, so they will get the artisans there, the laborers there.
As India cements its place among the world's fastest growing economies, it's not just global investors looking for opportunities here. India's eastern region too is looking to be a part of India's growth story. In Mumbai, Madiha Mujawar.
Madiha, many thanks. Well, it's going to be a busy evening. There's the Fed chief, there's President Trump. Both will be speaking. We will get you all the latest action right here on CNBC TV 18. Stay tuned for the Global Edge. But for now, from all of us here on India Business Hour, thanks very much for watching. Stay tuned to CNBC TV 18. A top brass reshuffle at Hindustan Unilever. Sources say that Ritesh Tiwari is set to step down as the company's chief financial officer.
Well, the management rejig at HUL seems to be continuing. What we're picking up from our sources is that Ritesh Tiwari, who's currently the chief financial officer of Hindustan Unilever, is also likely to step down from his role, but he's most likely to take on a global role at Unilever.
Well, we told you first, and now it's official. Hindustan Unilever has named Niranjan Gupta as its next chief financial officer.
After we reported a month ago that HUL CFO Ritesh Tiwari will be stepping down as a CFO to take on a global role, the company has today officially announced Niranjan Gupta as its next chief financial officer.